Welcome to Business Success Tips, where you learn to make more money in less time and have a lot more fun. My name is Paul Sanneman. I'm your host, founder of Contractor Staffing Source, where we help contractors build great teams. Keefer is with me today from Kongify. So,
Hello.
Keefer, tell me, what does Kongify do?
Kongify is a home service branding agency. We don't go outside of home services. We stick just in that niche, primarily contractors, roofing, plumbing, electrical, disaster restoration, those type of things.
Okay, so explain to me what does branding mean in those, if you have like a roofing company or a, painting company,
So
what does branding mean?
I mean, from Kongify's standpoint of like what we do, we help create a brand by starting out with their name if they don't have a good one, or maybe they need to get a better name than one that's very common and more recognizable, and you can build a brand around. But a brand itself is really needs to be, to me, memorable more than anything else, right? People got to be able to see it and consistently see it over and over again and remember that that brand exists and what it does. It needs to build trust, right? Any type of brand that is very memorable and eye-catching, it starts building trust over time. Like if you're seeing this over and over again, these guys are going to be around. So they must be able to be trusted. Or you start seeing the brand in people's neighborhoods. You see them at your neighbors, right? Oh, my neighbors trusted that brand, then I can trust them to work on my house as well. Um, Differentiation in the market, right? If you have nothing but white vans or everybody's doing the same thing, if you're a roofing contractor and your logo is, part of a top of a house, right? And just maybe your family name on there, and it's a white van or it's red, black, and white, or any combination of those. You just blend in with everybody else. So a brand really has to be unique and step out and as well. And then a brand that has trust and is recognizable is going to be a lot better at charging higher prices as well. That's a really big part of growing a serious brand, because when you've built that trust and recognition, you're going to be able to charge a lot more.
Now, Kiefer, could you define what is a brand? I mean, there is obviously lots of brands in clothing and brands in, phones and like Apple has how would you define a brand? What is a brand?
It has to be recognizable, and you have to have an emotional or connection with it, or a belief system connection with it. Typically in the home service industry, you want to have a positive emotional connection with the brand. And I think that's what really makes a brand. If it can be recognizable and the target audience, typically a woman homeowner, can connect with it emotionally, that is really the core of a brand.
Now, can you give me two samples of a brand you took from scratch? They like didn't have a name or anything, and a brand that you had to change because it was so bad.
Uh, a brand that I had to change their name. Oh, geez, I'm gonna have to actually look that up. There's been an awful lot of them.
I know there was Terrible Herbst gasoline. I couldn't believe that was actually a name somebody came up with, right? It's like, okay, go. It was
Oh,
great.
yeah, I've seen quite a few. Um, so sorry. Um,
So while you're looking at, I'm assuming that a brand, because most brands, people don't think it. They just, ask their kid, or maybe nowadays they go to AI and say, come up with a brand and a logo. But how does that, I mean, it's probably one of the most important things you can do, but how do you know if you're doing it right or not? I mean, it's an opinion. Do you do a focus group or something?
no, so it is really subjective. What one person thinks is a good brand versus another. For for me, again, it always has to go back to uh, is it going to be memorable, right? And is it going to have a positive emotional connection in the end? Sometimes that's not able to be achieved. The homeowner or the actual business owner tries to sometimes get in the way. Disaster restoration is a very common industry with this problem. They want to turn around and try to build their brand still on something like, Masters of Disaster, where they want to pull up to somebody's house who just burnt down, right, and remind them, hey, you
Your
know,
house.
your house just burnt down. You lost everything. It's been a complete disaster, and we're gonna plaster a burnt house on a wrapped van behind
Right.
us, right? And we're just gonna rub salt in the wound here. So, but yeah, again, highly subjective on what a good brand is. When you're just talking about like the visual aspect. But again, it always comes back to, is it going to be recognizable, and is it going to turn around and connect with the target audience emotionally?
Well, and how do you determine that? I mean, I've got a, I don't know, a roofing company picture. In a picture, it's roofers are us, and there's a picture of a roof, with a giraffe on it. Just kidding. It's like, how do you fix that? How do you determine whether it's good or bad? And I think being an expert in branding is difficult because it's so subjective. So
It,
how do you
it, it is. And back in my past, I had the very first company I ever started when I was about 20 years old. It was called Extreme Lawn Care. There was nothing extreme about it, just sounded cool. So I did what every guy did, right? So I slapped that up and started growing that company. I was growing it and slowly, but just like average of what somebody would be growing something with.
Mhm.
And one day, I always tell the story. One day I got, to looking around, and I'm trying to redo my logo, and I ran across this cool gorilla that, is holding this sign. So I turn around and I made that my new logo. It still said Extreme Lawn Care across the thing. So I didn't change the company name or anything, just added this little mascot logo, right? That was cartoonish. And I put that on my trucks and trailers and everything. And we didn't have too many, I think maybe 3 or 4 at the time, crews out. But then we did that. We put that in all of our marketing, of course. That was back when Yellow Pages was still a thing, and a bunch of different flyers and all that stuff. And then everybody just started calling up all the time. Our phones were blowing up, and they were saying, "Hey, we saw you guys. You guys are the monkey guys, the gorilla guys, right?" And they were always like laughing about it and positive. And that was like my aha moment, when it was
Mhm.
like, holy cow, like there's something really to this, right? Which then got me down to going down what was called tightwad marketing back then. It's kind of guerrilla marketing now. How you can grow a brand with very little money by using powerful visuals and other things. So that's where kind of Kongify's come from. Then I've taken that with other companies that I've grown for other people, or myself, and applied those same type of things and just seen it over and over. I currently own, with my wife, another home service business called the Mold Girl, and the mascot's after my wife, cartoon version. And that one, we're covering, we have 4 offices in 5 states doing the exact same thing. We get all the feedback from it all the time, that they love the girl. They love the fact that it's a woman business. They love the character. They love how friendly she is. We sold another one of our companies back in 2020 called Hydro Hero, and did the same thing, turned a mascot, turned the brand into a mascot, and it had little kid all dressed up as a like a Spartan warrior with, his shield and everything. And as soon as we did that, right, the company immediately, everybody just recognized it. All of our vehicles, we see you everywhere, so on and so forth. So over the years, it's just been not only just doing it for other people, but really for my own companies as well, that I've grown and sold, and then currently still own. So it's a very repeatable thing that
Well,
I know.
now, having been in the industry for a long time, branding is something, it's very subjective. It usually shows up by accident because you just sort of come up with a brand when you start a company. And then there's the fear of, oh my God, I've got all this time and energy invested in this brand. What if I change it? Am I going to lose all my equity in my brand?
Most people don't really have a brand. They have a company with a logo, right? and they haven't really, may call it a brand, but it's nowhere close to it. It's still not recognizable just because you've been around for 30 years, right? With some, logo that somebody just thought up real quick and you slapped on there and you've been driving around forever doesn't really mean that you have a brand. It's not really connecting with anybody. Um, so, I don't see any downside. I don't know of anyone, including myself or any of our clients or even my competitors' clients, like KickCharge, who's my biggest competitor. I don't think that there's anyone who's been through us or uh, anybody else of our caliber that has ever regretted that. It's not been a substantial growth.
Now, how do you tell whether you just have a logo or have a brand?
Again, is it recognizable? Is it really connecting with people? I, most of the time, everybody already knows the answer to that when they come to us, right? They know that they have a weak brand. If they're still doing Google search, they're paying PPC up the wazoo to turn around and um, be trying to be found for something like Charleston Roofer, right? If they're having problems growing organically in the maps and getting leads, they have a weak brand because Google itself, just to segue over on that side of things, brand entity searches are the number one thing that gets you all the keywords. So if people aren't typing in your name all the time because you're recognizable, then you're having a harder time competing with everybody else who has a strong brand. So that would be another signal. If you are just having problems ranking and getting leads from Google, and especially Google Maps, you have a brand problem.
Well, explain to me a roofing company you've worked with that went from having a logo to having a brand and how it affected them.
So I just started with some roofers, but I can't give you too much feedback for the roofing industry itself because Kongify is still a new company. We've been around for about a year and a half now. So a lot of the clients who have gone through us for their visual brand identity, and that they've launched, they're just in the beginning stages. So I have to go back and then turn around and measure the impact that it had.
Okay.
So I just like to be super honest about
Okay,
things,
so
right?
so show me can you like just think of a sample of somebody who has a logo and then you've changed it to even though you might have done it a while. I mean, a couple of your companies, think of some other company you've worked with, it doesn't matter what kind, where they had a logo and you changed it to a brand and you've pretty much immediately felt some kind of a difference in the way people reacted to it.
Oh yeah, so one of the first ones that we did was for No Worries Rooter. So um he had, gosh, I don't even remember what the logo was, to the point of having a weak brand there. But it was, just white vehicle from what I remember and just regular lettering that just said no worries in blue. And we rebranded him. We gave him a mascot logo of a drain or uh, water whirl, if you want to call it that.
Mhm.
Turn that into the mascot. Redid all the branding, the wraps, everything, and gave it a um, really good visual brand identity. And then he grew exponentially. I don't want to speak for him, but man, that he was like, wow, this is crazy how much we're growing. So that was a big one. There's another one, Simple Services out in San Antonio. Again, trucks pretty much white, had a blue bottom to them, if I remember white, right, in blue lettering that just said, simple service. We turned around and rebranded that one to a cowboy theme, and he's got a cowboy plumber on a horse with this entire theme, and they exponentially blew up too. I know that they at least doubled in the revenue, if not more.
Okay. So how everybody listening to this podcast has a brand with it. And so the question is, how do they evaluate it? How do they say, oh, this is a good brand or a bad brand? Because it's so subjective. They ask their kids, their clients, their neighbor, say, what do you think? Some people say it's cool, some people say it sucks. So how do you go about evaluating your brand?
I don't have an answer for that.
You know, because I'm
No.
thinking because they've all got everything. They go, well, should I call a branding company? Is it a good brand? Is it a bad brand? Because I'm thinking, the brand I have, we came up with it and it's on everything and we've had it for 5 years. I know a lot of people the same way. A lot of our people listen to this podcast all have a brand, but I'm sure in the back of their mind they're questioning, is this best brand for me? Does it have emotional connection? Does it make a difference? Um, if somebody came to you and said, okay, here's my brand, how would you go about evaluating it, or because you're an expert in this, how do you figure that out?
Right. So I'm going to look at it and see myself. Hey, first of all, does this look like it blends in with everybody else? What makes this unique? What color schemes do you have? What is the overall theme? Is it positive? Does it look like is it over masculine or is it really appealing to your target audience? Does it have a memorable name or is it just your name? Is it a local name? Right? Those are signs of weak brands. If an investor wants to come in and buy your company and it's low country HVAC over here in my area, well, then expanding that brand out definitely hurts its valuation because they have an obstacle to overcome because you've localized the business. If you have a family name, that's another thing that has to be overcome because most private equity does not want to buy somebody's name and then turn around and have to change that just so they can grow it out because it's only locally known. Does it have is the company running off of ABC restoration, right? Is it just an acronym? Is it just initials, right? These type of things. Those things those are all signs of weak brands as well. So those are things that we commonly look for, right? Does it have a mascot, an icon? Is it just a font that's just thrown on there? I mean, there's many, many different things like that from a visual aspect. And again, then there's looking at, the SEO side of things and all that as well.
Now you probably know something about this. What is it important to have a .com or not? Because a lot of people choose their brand because they had to come up with something that was .com that wasn't taken already, um, when
Yeah.
choosing your name. Do you think that's important to have .com, or can you have .net, .ai, .whatever? Does it matter these days?
So I strongly feel that you have to have a .com. This is why a lot of the times if you have something like Panda Roofing and it's already taken, then you might need to call Panda Roofing. You may need to put a word in front or the back or do some sort of variation. .com, I think is very important. That's going to be going away though, right? Because adding your phone number and your website on the website, or I mean on your like wraps is really you want to make them as small as possible because in all honesty, nobody's got time anymore. They're not trying to type in people's phone numbers. They're not trying to type in a long website address, right? That's why when you're doing the wrap design and really everything after that as well, the brand has to be very prevalent. From a wrap design standpoint, everybody's going to type in your name anyways. They want to turn around and see what are other people saying. How many reviews do you got? And what are my neighbors saying about doing business with you, right? And when that happens, again, it's going to turn around and boost up your SEO, especially in maps, and you're going to start ranking more as well. So you do want to have a .com, but it's quickly becoming less and less important to have a website address shown.
Okay. So instead of a website address, what should you have? And not your phone number. What should you show?
I mean, we have a rule on when we're doing wraps ourselves. It's 5 things, right? So it's either the mascot or the icon, the word mark, which is the actual logo, right? The phone number, the website, and a tagline. That's it, right? On a rare occasion, depending on your industry and where you're located, maybe the license number. Definitely not QR codes. We're not big on that. They don't look very nice. Be nice if somebody came up with something that was stylized a little bit better. But really, that's it. You don't need to be a lawn care company, right? And then turn around and list it. You mow, you edge, you weed eat, you pull
Hmm.
weeds, you do bushes, and so on and so forth. Everybody knows that. You're a landscape company, right? Or you do lawn
Right.
care. It's assumed. Same thing.
Now, when you're talking about guerrilla marketing, um, just in off the top of your head, what things do you do that are in guerrilla marketing that are for a, I don't know, pick a company you work for, and what things have you done in the way of guerrilla marketing? What does that include?
Yeah, one, we wanted to there's a disaster restoration company I used to work for, and they had no real Facebook likes and stuff and Facebook ads, and Facebook was more popular back then because you really didn't have TikTok and stuff. And growing that following was really important. One of the one of the guerrilla marketing tactics I did there is we knew that the target audience was older people that for this particular company. So what do older people like to do that they all have in common? They like to watch the weather. Okay. So we found the local guy that was doing weather in that area. I built a relationship with him. And then I would go out with him and we would do weather forecasting together, right? And promote the brand that way. We would also run paid ads asking people different questions about the weather and like this, if you think, if you agree with this, or you think this is a fact or not, right? And all they, as they're hitting like to agree with this particular question, then it turned around and was actual like to the page. Now that they're liking the page, you're going to start seeing our post more often, right? We
Right.
did this with football and everything else. You have two, the Chiefs versus, San Francisco. I don't watch football, so I don't really know. But you have these two companies, right? Run ads for both sides, right? Who do you think's
Right.
going to win? If you think it's this team, hit the like, right? If you agree, people automatically are like, oh yeah, we're definitely my team's gonna win. Hits that like,
Right.
boom. Now they're seeing your stuff.
Okay. Now, what about, yard signs, posters, flyers, truck wraps? What's all included in guerrilla marketing for a service company?
What's included in guerrilla marketing?
Yeah, what do you, yeah, obviously yard signs, I used to wrap your trucks, you do poster. What kind of things are included, do you
I,
think?
I I think guerrilla marketing is really more of the tactic, not necessarily the item, right, that you're
Hmm.
using, but really the thought of how can I do something that doesn't cost me a lot of money, that will get me the most amount of leads or whatever the goal is that you're trying to do with that type of thing.
Okay. So it's sort of thinking outside the box and doing stuff that's effective but not expensive, right? You're saying.
Yeah, and you got to
Yeah.
do it in a positive way. I'm sure that we've all seen the rap with the guy sitting on the toilet for the plumber, and he's kind of hanging out the window, and it looks like if you look on it from the outside, you see that it looks like the driver's sitting on the toilet going down the road.
Mhm.
Very clever, right? Definitely gets people talking. Probably not the best way to go about that type of thing.
Right. Sometimes
Yeah.
it's not negative attention isn't necessarily as good as positive attention. So, um, Kiefer, if someone wants to like call you and say, okay, check out my brand and what do you think? How do they do that?
They just go to Kongify.co and we have a big orange button that says transform my brand now. You just click on that and you'll get a one-on-one discovery call with me. And then we'll go over your entire brand and see if we're a good fit for each other. And then if so, we'll move forward and rebrand you.
Well, sounds good. Well, if you have a service company, I think it's something you should all do because I would say 99% of people have got their brands organically, and very few people have actually planned it out, right? So again, Kiefer, just go to Kongify.co and hit the button, right?
Correct.
Okay, thanks, Kiefer. I appreciate your time. Everybody listen to this. I'm sure you always have branding questions, so there's a guy to call. Thanks, Kiefer.
Thanks so much, Paul. Have a great day.